Thank you folks for tuning in. My name is Jay McNeil. I am the host of the Coffee Pot Fellowship podcast. We are doing our first live streaming effort here. So if you manage to get tuned in here and ask some questions, we will try and respond to those either as we go along or at the end, depending if they fit in. And we haven't done a lot of publicity because this is sort of a test run. And I should not watch my own picture in 10-second delay. That doesn't help anything. So AmyBeth, thank you for being with us. You are the National Sanctuary Movement Organizer for who? What organization are you with?
Oh, well, I'm just with the Sanctuary Movement. So, but I closely work with Southside Presbyterian Church in Tucson, Arizona.
Mm-hmm. And do you work with a particular group of folks in the church there at Southside?
I actually work in our local Southern Arizona Sanctuary Coalition, which right now is made up of about 12 congregations, including Southside.
All right. Cool. How about if we, before I ask you the big drum roll kind of question about coffee, can you tell folks a little bit more about yourself? Sort of a short summary. Is there more that you would like folks to know as we get going? I'm very excited. You and I have been trying to set this up for a really long time. So
yes,
your plate has been very, very full with all the goings on.
Yes, very full. Well, I guess I would just say that I was born and raised in the Southeast. Spent most of my childhood in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, outside of Nashville, and then attended college at Emory University in Atlanta, Georgia. And so the Southeast is very near and dear to me. But I first moved over out west right after college as a intern with a service program called the Young Adult Volunteer Program through the Presbyterian Church USA. And so that first brought me here to the Borderlands, and I left and then returned back about a year ago. So something about this community and the powerful stories of those who live here on the border really is compelling to me.
Well, I'm very glad that you're responding. You and I got to meet actually up here in Richmond. Thank goodness. I don't know if I've ever been to your part of the United States, well, where you are now, or really very much. I spent a couple of days in Tennessee, but that's about all I know of Tennessee. But we met up here at a conference. I sort of swooped in and out and got to attend one evening event at a conference organized by the Virginia Interfaith Center for Public Policy here. Kim Bobo is the executive director, and Lana Heath de Martinez is sort of my perpetual contact and let me know about that. And so she had been working with them at that point, and I think was a point of contact organizer for that event. So that was really cool. And Lana is actually a past guest on the show, so we'll have to include a link to her. And Kim Bobo and I have been talking quite a bit, and I hope that she will be a future guest as well. So we're really trying to come full circle on all of that. So some of that said, how about that drum roll? AmyBeth Willis, how do you like your coffee?
Actually, don't like my coffee. I'm not much of a coffee drinker. I'm more of a hot tea drinker, especially of the mint variety, mint and chamomile. So some hot tea with a little bit of sugar.
Well, you had me both at mint and at chamomile are both winning elements to me. So
yes,
I will celebrate that. 7 days a week. Explains why you're, less agitated than most of the population, perhaps.
I guess so. Right. I survive without a lot of caffeine somehow.
Yep, that's good. I sometimes want to challenge Christians that um, maybe we should depend more on some other pieces of our faith rather than our caffeine. I think a lot of people get through seminary and college less on their faith and more on their caffeine.
Mm-hmm.
So how about if we jump in then with our stories? Can I ask you if you have a favorite story, either one of your own or one that you've heard that you might be willing to share with us?
Mm-hmm. So when I was thinking about this question, really one of Aesop's fables came to mind about the tortoise and the hare. And I think that story came to me because in doing this work of organizing in a time such as this, I often feel like the hare that's racing to the end. But I recognize that this work is really the work of the tortoise in being slow and steady in the work of justice and in the work of bringing people together to mobilize them so that we can organize for a better and more just society. And I come to this work, as an ally to undocumented folks, to immigrant folks, to my neighbors who don't have citizenship status and the power and privilege that comes with that. And so I need to remind myself that slow and steady also allows me to really heed the voices of those most affected as I do my work alongside them.
The tortoise and the hare is always, it's what I love about this. You really, once you say tortoise and the hare, kind of everybody knows the theme, the moral, the lesson.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yes, it's agreed. It's encouraging just to hear that little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So good reminder, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
How about the more challenging question of, is there a story of biggest trial or blunder that you would be willing to share with us?
Yes, so really it's been that in about the past year and a half, I have been struggling with clinical depression, which is obviously something that's hard to talk about because there is still a stigma around mental health issues. And really for me, this struggle has come to light in the fact that I am a very motivated person and very passionate about caring for others. And so in this struggle, really figuring out how to seek that balance between caring for myself and doing the work that I'm most passionate about. And so on many days when I used to wake up and it was hard enough just to make myself get out of bed and eat breakfast, I had to remind myself that unless I am whole and pour into myself, I can't do that for anyone else. And I think too many times in the world, especially those of us who are allies to this work, we're willing to burn out and sacrifice ourselves for the cause. And I really learned that it's not worth that. And that's not when I think of the life in the realm of God that we're called to build through Jesus. God wants us to live life abundantly and to have life abundantly, and that means for everyone, even those of us who do have significant power and privilege. And so it's really been a time of learning as much of a challenge as well, because I won't be sitting here smiling saying that it's been easy by any means, but really learning to depend on others and to ask for help and say, I can't, has been a big piece of this. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that'll be a huge learning moment, right? Having to say I can't and ask for help. Well, thank you there really is that stigma about it. Otherwise, it wouldn't be so hard to share about it, right? If there wasn't a stigma around it. And I've said on this show before that depression is something that I have wrestled with, and if I'm not careful, I can find myself right back there. And so my listeners probably think that every story that's told, I turn around and say, oh, I know, I know how you feel because I've been there. And that's not, I don't want it to sound like that, but I hear you. So, trying to move on, turn the corner. Thank you. Is there a story of happiest ministry or happiest life moment that you'd be willing to share with folks?
Yes, so when I think of happy life moments, I always return in my head, and usually I return to this moment whenever I'm really stressed out and I just need to take a deep breath and remember something beautiful. I mean, there are a lot of beautiful things that I get to experience and have gotten to experience in my life, but one particular moment was, or series of moments was about 6 years ago now. When I was a sophomore in college, I was able to go on a class trip to Ecuador. And we started in the capital city and then moved north into the Andes Mountains, and then finally back all the way down into the tropical rainforest. And what was so beautiful about that opportunity was, number one, of course, just the beauty of seeing God's creation and all of these sites that are so different than what at that time I had ever seen before. And just the verdant, the smell of the rainforest, and just to be completely cut off from all distractions. I mean, I had a little point and shoot camera, but every distraction but the people I was with and the place I was in. And I was also very fortunately on this trip with a handful of my very, very good friends at the time, people I still keep up with now. And so to have that time to really focus and reflect and to learn about the Quechua indigenous culture, and people trying to maintain their livelihoods while faced with all of these outside pressures, trying to maintain their language when they're required to send their kids to school to learn Spanish. Really, I just look back and I think of those moments, not in a romantic, oh, their lives are so much better than ours way, but in a way that accepts the reality and the teachings of people who are really rooted in their home being a physical place. And so it's able to remind me now that wherever I live and wherever I am, I can look around and appreciate the beauty, and really find solace and comfort and rest in that. And so I specifically think back to a moment when we were back out of the rainforest, and we were just taking a break after not showering, after we were having a little bit of a respite after kind of hiking everywhere and not showering and all of that. And we walked out into this field, and all of a sudden I look up and I see this gigantic volcano that's capped in snow. And it was one of the most beautiful things that I've ever seen. And we got a chance to kind of explore around the area, and laugh, and just the weather was beautiful and everything about it. And so I frequently return to that moment of really pure joy and peace, which I think we need to develop those practices of returning to those moments when we're in the midst of crisis times, and when we're in the midst of a political crisis moment, which, I do believe that we're in now.
Mm-hmm. Do you, I have that moment, do you walk into the sort of reveal moment when you stepped out and saw the mountain? It's sort of that 2 or 3 seconds where you step out into splendor?
Yeah, I think it was because I was kind of distracted talking to my friends, kind of looking down, probably looking at my camera or something, and then I finally look up to see where we are, and it absolutely took my breath away. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm finding that I think it's important to revisit those kinds of things. I guess it's a permission giving for people to take different kinds of, I keep calling them vacations. Like, mm-hmm. A lot of people are having meltdowns on social mm-hmm. media these days, yeah. Right? Because we're inundated with the news and everything that's going mm-hmm. on. And whether we're people of privilege or not, I think everybody needs that Sabbath space, right? They need mm-hmm. to be able to get away, so that we can do the marathon, so that we can mm-hmm. be the tortoise, and do the good long work. Mm-hmm. So I'm saying it to myself as much as mm-hmm. to anybody, but let's take those breaks, and especially if you can get to someplace beautiful in nature. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, thank you for taking us to Ecuador. I had never been there before now, so thanks again. How about, as we wrap up, I do know that you have a book recommendation and a favorite quote, right?
I do.
So a lot of times we don't force time I run out of time in the interview to ask everybody that question, but I would love to hear your book recommendation.
So my book recommendation is a book called Meeting Jesus Again for the First Time by Marcus Borg. He is a historical Jesus scholar, but also a man who doesn't just do that work academically, but is a follower of Christ as well. And the book to me is a beautiful way to really help put together what scholars understand about who Jesus was as a historical, real person in the first century, with what Christianity and Christian doctrine and tradition have interpreted Jesus as the Christ, right? And he really focuses around these ideas that Jesus's two main things were spirituality and compassion. So I recommend you reading the book. It really, I think I'm going to read it again soon, because it's a great opportunity to reflect on those two very important ways that keep us grounded in who God wants us to be.
I haven't read the book, so I'm going to have to take your word, but I do think that Marcus Borg is always a good recommendation. And how about that favorite quote?
So you'll sense a theme here when I speak, but one of my favorite quotes is by Lila Watson, who is an Aboriginal activist in Australia, and it's attributed to her, but like many quotes, probably belongs to a community of people. And so the quote is, "If you've come to help me, you're wasting your time. But if you have come because your liberation is bound up in mine, then let us work together." And really, for the past 4 years of being out of college and in the world, seeking to do the work of justice and building God's kingdom, I find that this quote helps me to return to what the gospel calls me to, which is not that I'm supposed to go out and help these less fortunate people, right? But instead that my very salvation and liberation is at stake, and I must do something to change that, right? And really, that quote is really the fundamental of Latin American liberation theology and other liberation theologies that really talk about how God calls those of us in places of power and privilege to stand alongside the marginalized and to do the work from that angle. And so as I do my work working with congregations who want to become involved in sanctuary, it's really important that I'm constantly reminding them that this work is always rooted in our relationships with the affected community. So in this work with undocumented people, what are they asking of us? And what do they need from us? Something here in Tucson right now is that primarily we're being asked to provide childcare so that they themselves can meet. And that isn't the most glamorous thing to do, but it's important. And I think it's too easy for those of us with agendas and schedules and calendars to say, this is what we're going to do. This is the right thing. I know best. I have an education, on and on and on. But we must remain rooted in those relationships and in recognizing that our liberation truly is bound up in this work as much as the liberation of those we work with.
I agree. And I'm very glad for you to say it, because I need to listen, actually. Do you mind my asking how old you are? You said you're 4 years out of school?
I just turned 26, yes.
That's right. We were celebrating your birthday like a week ago, right?
Yes.
4 or 5 days ago? It was on a Sunday. Yeah, we were back and forth about whether you would have the day off, and you said Sunday. Sorry, Sunday's a work day.
Yes, it was a very busy day, but still a good day.
Good. Well, happy birthday again.
Thank you.
The only reason I bring it up right now is because I bow down at the feet of what you know and what you're doing, and as a student. And I am not twice your years, but I really appreciate so much the leadership and the wisdom that is coming from really your generation of folks. And so thank you so much. It is so heartening and inspiring to see that energy and heart, just all so much care bound up, and in great numbers of people, but with really good leadership too. So thanks so much.
Thank you.
Yeah. Before we go, is there something that you would like to explicitly promote before we leave?
Let's see. I forgot about this question. I would just say that if you're a person watching this and you want to know about more about the sanctuary movement and how to get involved in work to resist the Trump administration's deportation regime, then go to sanctuary.notdeportation.org. And if you click the little email button, that goes to me. But I would also recommend that you go and read all the information already available there and see who's working on this work in your area. So that's what I'd plug. But I know there's a lot of work to be done right now. And so whatever you're involved in, however you're caring for others and caring for yourself, keep doing that.
Awesome. I'm going to go ahead and, if you'll tell me the address, it got a little bit garbled in the connection. Can you tell me the address and I'll type it?
It's www.sanctuary.notdeportation.org.
www.sanctuary.notdeportation.org.
Yes.
Right. I think in the garbled part of it, the not sounded like a dot with a D.
Oh, okay.
Sanctuary.notdeportation.org. So I just put that in the comments right now, but we'll also put that in the show notes when we get done. So is there anything you want to say before we get going?
I think that's it. I would just say to everyone to keep the faith and find hope and joy in the little things, whatever that might be for you.
Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you, Jay.
So, you're welcome. And so I said we would put the information in the show notes. The show notes, as you all know, are always at coffeepotfellowship.com, www.coffeepotfellowship.com. Thanks, AmyBeth, again for tuning in, and thanks to our listeners for tuning in and for living into who you are all fully called to be. Until next time, God bless.